everyone, it's Lisa from My Dreaming Soap. Welcome to my channel. Now today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Now I don't know, you may have seen a video that I had up recently with some bath crayons on, and this is going to be another different recipe. I recently won a soap challenge, and my prize for that soap challenge was a gift certificate from Bath Fizz and Foam. And Bath Fizz and Foam do a lot of recipes with all sorts of different things, like the bath crayons I did recently, and what I'm going to do today, which is some jelly soap. Now, this jelly soap looks really fun to make. I'm just going to do sort of a test batch and try it out and see how it goes. So it may not turn out brilliantly, but we'll see. You know, I'm just going to follow the recipe. It's the first time I've ever made it, and we'll see how it goes. Now, obviously, this is a recipe that I've bought, so I can't give the recipe out online, and I'm going to be a little bit careful about what I say about the ingredients. But obviously, if you like what's going on in this recipe and you think it looks fun to make, then pop yourself over to Bath Fizz and Foam. The recipes are pretty good value over there. They're not massively expensive. Now, this recipe had a couple of slightly more what I would call unusual ingredients. If you just purely make cold processed soap, you may not have some of these ingredients, but if you do things like any creams, that sort of stuff, you may have them on hand. So there's nothing really wildly odd with them. Right, so for a jelly soap, now if you think about jelly is basically a liquid that you put a gelling agent in, you know, like when you make jelly at home. The difference, obviously, that we're going to do with ours is that we're not going to be eating this jelly. We're going to use it as a soap. So we're going to need to have a surfactant in it, so something to actually make it soapy and bubbly. Also, I'm going to add a little bit of colour and some fragrance, because that's just fun, isn't it? Right, so let's get our ingredients in first of all. Now, as I said, I've spoken to you about we need a gelling agent and we need a surfactant. There are another couple of ingredients that go in, which the ladies at Bath Fizz and Foam have gone through, and in all of their recipes they explain exactly why each ingredient is in their recipe and what it does, and they give you various alternatives. So I'm just adding a couple of things that will help give structure and a bit of resilience to the gel. Now, this first recipe I'm doing is for a firmer jelly, one that you could mould in a silicone mould, and hopefully it should stand up on its own. It's not apparently going to be particularly jiggly. Right, so there's that. So I just now need to put my gelling agent in. And again, in the recipe, they go over the gelling agents, what you need, why you'd use them, how the types of gelling agents work, all of that sort of stuff. Let's just add okay, so there's my gelling agent. Okay, I'm just going to give that a good mix in. I want to try and get rid of all these sort of lumpy bits now at this stage before we start adding water and everything. Because if I can get rid of the lumps now, then that's a good thing, obviously, and much better than trying to get rid of them later on. I think that looks pretty good there. So now I've got the rest of my ingredients. I've got some water in here and my surfactant. And we've got another ingredient in here which again helps with that, the structure, making sure that you've got a jelly that doesn't just fall apart in your hands, and it has a little bit of structure and sort of, I guess, stretch or whatever to it. Right, there's all those bits in. Now I've got a few bubbles on the top of that, so I'm just going to spray with some rubbing alcohol just to get rid of them, just so I don't get bubbles in the soap. Now what I need to do here is I now need to heat this up. Just like when you make any jelly, you need to warm all everything up to activate that gelatine or wherever it is that you're using. Now my little burner here is actually quite noisy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to heat it up. Let me just show if I put it on. Okay, so it's actually quite noisy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this up to the temperature I need it, which is 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'll come back when I've done that, just so you haven't got to try and listen over the fan. Okay, I think I'm there with what I need. It's not quite 180 degrees Fahrenheit, but when I've checked my thickener, it says to heat it between 70 and 80 degrees centigrade, which I'm there with that. Let's have a look. Yeah, 72. It was up to 74 a little while ago. So I'm quite happy. And the other thing we can do is do a little test. If you ever make jam, you probably do this sort of test anywhere, where you get a little bit of the gel and let it cool slightly. And then you can see as it's cooling, whether it's actually gelling. And mine's starting to come into a gel, just like that. Okay, so I think I've got some gelling going on there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my fragrance. I'm using Watermelon Margarita from Scented Living there. So that's right. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to add a little bit of mica first. So now I don't really know how much mica to use. The recipe doesn't say, it just says use a tiny bit. So I'm just going to pop in a tiny bit, and this is just a candy red mica that I don't really use in soap normally, so it's great for when I test products out. Let's see if I can get that mixed in. I think that's an okay colour for a sort of watermelon colour. So now I'm going to get my fragrance oil and preservative in. And again, in the recipe, they do go over in quite a bit of detail about the types of preservatives that you should use. Just going to turn that heat off. Types of preservatives you can use, and obviously the considerations with temperature and all of that sort of stuff. So I'm just popping that in. Now, preservative is used because obviously this is a soap that's got water in it, but also it's quite likely, especially if you use sort of like the more liquid type, the jiggly formula that I'm going to use in a minute, is that people may be dipping their hands into it. So you don't want it to get affected by water that's added to the product. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Right, I'm going to get that poured. Let's get my noisy old cooker out of the way. There we are. That gets rid of that. Okay, now mould-wise, I'm just going to use this sort of fairly cheapy flower mould. It has this like brown mark on there. It never comes off on anything. I'm not sure what it is, but I don't know if I'm going to use all of these anyway. So let's just get this poured. Now this isn't the best container to pour from, I must admit. Where's my spatula gone? Okay. I'm sure I'll probably only get a couple out of this. Yeah, that's what I expected. That's fine, because this is only a little test batch that I'm doing. Excellent shot there. A few bubbles on the top. Some rubbing alcohol. Okay. Now that one's gone in nicely. That one I sort of, because I blobbed the scrapings out of the jar on there, that's a little bit rough. But that's kind of it. So I just need these to set up. I'm going to leave them overnight. I don't think, I obviously read through the recipe. I don't think it told you how long to leave them for. I think it is just a case until they've cooled and set, and then they can be used. But I will check the recipe again, and then we'll come back, and when the appropriate time has passed, we'll have a go on them. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make up the second lot, because this should, if I've done it right, give us a nice firm jelly that we can unmould. What they give you another recipe for is a more jiggly wiggly jelly. Okay, so that jelly there is not going to jiggle around, it's going to be more firm. So there's another recipe that they give you that gets you to make a jiggly jelly that you'd put in a jar or something. So it has fairly similar method to it, basically exactly the same method to it, and similar ingredients. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make that up and then bring you back when I've done that, because it's just a case of pouring the stuff out. I'm not obviously going to say what the ingredients are because it's not my recipe, but we'll do it again, and when I've heated that through, then we will come back and I'll pour those into my little pots that I've got for them. Okay, I'm back again with my second recipe. Now this one, it seems a little bit thicker, which is the jiggly one, and it's just using a different type of gelling agent, and I've heated this one slightly less because I was just going by the actual instructions on the gelling agent itself, which again the recipe advises you to do. Now with this one I'm going to use a bay rum fragrance, and again what I've done in here, I've got bay rum, I've got my preservative, and what I've done is I've added the mica into here and got it nicely dispersed in here first, because I found it a little bit tricky to disperse it in the gel, and this one's even a little bit thicker. So I'm going to get those in. Let's just unplug that. Fan stays on it even when it's off for quite a while to just cool down, so I'm just going to unplug that, and that's better, isn't it? Get all that in there. Get that mixed in, so nice goldy ones this. That's a funny consistency. Right, and now I'm just going to pour these into these, try and pour them into these little pots. I haven't got any sort of nice little containers or moulds or anything, so I'm just going to use these little pots. I think that will be fine. This is funny stuff. 1, 2, and I think I'll just get a third one out of here. Yep. Obviously it seems better if you can pour it all in one lump, whereas I'm sort of mushing mine out, which I guess if you were trying to do them to sell, you'd probably make a better job than that. Just going to smooth this surface out a bit. How funny. Okay, so there's those made. So it would be nice if I'd got those tops a bit better. I should get better with my pouring of it. I was a bit worried because it seemed like it was like a big blob almost that might just all slip out together, and I didn't want it to just all blob out over one pot. Right, so a little bit rough on the bottom. I'm sure with a few more skills they'll get better. So again, I'm just going to leave those to cool right down. I'm just going to check the recipe again and see if there's any specific time we should be waiting for them to cure as such, and then we'll have a go and see what they look like. I'm back with my funny jelly soaps. Now it's probably been just over a week since I made these, and let's have a look at what we've got. So remember we did the solid jelly soaps first. So here they are. I unmoulded them and I've just kept them in a container. They should be apparently kept in a sealed container. And yeah, they do feel like jelly. Now, one of the things that happened with these jelly soaps is when I looked at them the next day, they hadn't really set properly, and they were still a bit mushy. So I looked back into the recipe, and that's another good thing with the recipe is they go through, you know, any troubleshooting, hints and tips and all that sort of stuff. And I think what happened, I don't know if you remember, is when I scraped out my jug, I then stirred the top of the jelly, and I think that sort of disrupted the jelly at a point when it was a little bit cold, so therefore it didn't set properly. And in the recipe, again, they give you, I'm trying not to give too much away for the recipe, but they do give you solutions about how to solve these types of things and what you can do. So that's another useful thing. So this is our first one. It does smell really quite strong here. I can't think what percentage of fragrance I put in it, but it wasn't a huge amount. I think it was like 2%. I think you could definitely go down to 1% in this. So let's have a go with this jelly soap. This was the, I think, watermelon one. So definitely feels like jelly, and look, it's giving me a nice lather. Okay, I'm kind of one of those people, I'm not really sure about the whole idea of a jelly soap, but these are, you know, they feel like jelly. It's a funny texture. It's funny. I can imagine children liking them, but it is quite a robust soap. I'm not saying a child couldn't rip that apart. I bet if they really wanted to grab hold of it and really rip it apart, they could. But definitely it is quite robust, and it's not just going to fall apart in the bath. And certainly you could use it pretty well like a normal soap, and then just put it to the side, and then just use it again. So yeah, nice lather with that one. So it's a quite good fun if you fancy to have a go at them. Let's have a look at these ones, the wobbly jellies. So I did these in a container, and ooh, trying to get, oh, look at that. That is literally really look at that wobbly jelly. Quite wobbly, and it feels really weird. I can imagine kids really liking this. That does feel odd. It's yeah, it's odd. I think if you did the whole thing, it would probably break away quite that feels really weird to use. It would probably break up quite easily. And I mean, I think it might be the sort of thing I've certainly seen in the recipe, and that they actually put it in a jar and maybe cut a little slice off to use. Actually, once you've got it going, that feels really nice on your hands. It feels really soft. How weird. That is weird. That is certainly, oh goodness me, what a weird sensation. That is odd. I quite like it in a really odd way. I can imagine your kids having lots of fun with that. I think you'd obviously have to watch to make sure they didn't shove it in their mouth, and I should imagine it would taste disgusting and they spit it out straight away. But oh goodness me, that isn't, oh that is a texture. I don't know why, that just amuses me so much. Oh goodness me, those are fun. That is a funny wobbly jelly.
These were really fun soaps to make. I don't know if it's something I'd ever sell in the shop, but certainly it was really good to once again try something different. And certainly the jiggly jellies, they are really funny, as you can tell. By the way, I was giggling away as I was testing them out. So there's two types, the solid one and the jiggly one, and you get both of the recipes when or if you do choose to go and buy the recipe. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and you like another little experiment. If you'd like to see what I'm making in the future, why not subscribe to my channel? Thanks for watching, everyone. Happy soaping!